You rely on this podcast to stay informed and connected with your local community, and we rely on you. Without listener support, this show simply wouldn't exist. Be a part of the team that makes this show possible by donating to our home, KUOW. It only takes a minute. Donate at KUOW.org or follow the link in the show notes. And thank you.
You're listening to Soundside on KUOW. I'm Libby Dankman. A few months ago, Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz was demoted following numerous HR complaints and legal filings during his time at the helm of SPD. Those complaints included claims of discriminatory behavior by Diaz towards women and people of color. There were also rumors of a relationship with an employee. Diaz has denied these allegations, but in May, Mayor Bruce Harrell announced that Diaz would no longer lead the department and appointed former King County Sheriff Sue Rahr to replace him as interim police chief. But in a recent unsigned letter sent to the Seattle City Council, a whistleblower has alleged that the department's issues could continue even after Diaz because the agency tasked with holding SPD accountable hasn't been doing its job. KUOW's Ashley Hiruko has been reporting on all of these developments, and she joins me now to discuss a letter confirmed to be written by a whistleblower within the Office of Police Accountability. Ashley is an investigative reporter here at KUOW. Hey, Ashley, thanks for being back on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again.
So, Ashley, tell me about this unsigned letter. I mean, where did it come from? What does it allege?
So this letter was sent to city council members in early July, and it alleges that the system that holds the police chief accountable has failed. It says that two heads of the police watchdog agencies, Gino Betts and Lisa Judge, sat on complaints against Diaz. 10 potentially credible complaints were delayed, some up to 16 months. This claim was also supported by records that we obtained that showed that investigations into complaints against Diaz were lagging. It also alleges that Betts ordered staff to focus their energy to clear easily disproved complaints while sitting on more serious ones to increase clearance numbers. The letter states that if these complaints had been investigated earlier, then Diaz could have either, cleared his name or they could have been verified before Diaz was removed as police chief back in May.
Yeah, so interestingly, it makes the point that this actually could have benefited Diaz depending on the outcome of these complaints. And as I noted, the letter was not signed. Ashley, how were you able to verify that it does come from somebody within the Office of Police Accountability?
So before this letter was sent out, we had been tracking the status of certain complaints filed against Diaz. We noticed that some of the complaints we were tracking had remained at the intake level for more than a year. So we had been asking sources why this was the case already, before this letter was sent out. And so when this letter was sent out, we were able to look at our own records and confirm that the case numbers and claims mentioned in the complaint were accurate. The letter also included complaint numbers and allegations that we weren't aware of, which we were later able to verify. On top of this, our sources that we had told us this whistleblower letter came from within one of the complaint agencies.
So let's get into some of the complaints that the whistleblower claims are being held up. The letter provides an example of one, a complaint accusing Diaz of making his security driver run personal errands, like driving out of town to buy beef jerky. What new complaints against former Chief Diaz does this letter bring to light?
Yeah, so the letter actually had a bunch of details and complaints that we weren't aware of. Some of them include, allegations that Diaz used his status as police chief to badge into the July 2023 Taylor Swift concert.
What does that mean, badge into, Ashley?
Using your status to get in for free.
Flash your badge at the door, get in, even if you don't have a ticket.
Exactly.
Even if you're not working it officially also.
Exactly. Which the argument can be made that he's there as police chief, just, showing his presence as like a Seattle leader. And another complaint that was included in that letter was filed earlier this year, and it accused Diaz of retaliation against a former female SPD officer. She was one of those who publicly spoke out about sexism, but they're saying he retaliated because he disclosed that she had applied to be an assistant chief to the press, which the complaint says is confidential information and should not have been released.
Yeah, and it kind of colors the complaint that she made if she was an unsuccessful applicant for a higher job. Ashley, you're part of an investigation team here at KUOW that's been breaking stories, just throughout the last year on complaints within the SPD and turmoil at the department. what did your recent investigation find as to why this letter was written and sent to the city council, and how credible these whistleblower allegations are?
So again, we confirmed that this letter was written by a whistleblower within the Office of Police Accountability, and we verified complaints that were mentioned in the letter through our own records requests. We also shared the letter with 4 current and former Office of Police Accountability employees, and they said they felt the accusations of flawed leadership were accurate and that cases were being ignored. A former Office of Police Accountability investigation supervisor said the letter accurately reflects unnecessary delays. So the whistleblower letter says that the city of Seattle needs to take action, that Seattle's accountability systems are being hindered when it comes to complaints against high-ranking people, and that it leaves alleged victims with no other option but to sue the city for millions, and that the city and taxpayers have to eat those costs.
And you report that the delays in police chief investigations, they're not a new issue. I mean, a couple of years ago in 2022, the city council created a new process for investigating police chief complaints. And that change was due to a delay in 3 complaints against former Chief Carmen Best. Those cases lagged for 18 months. So what changes were made in 2022, Ashley, and why has the delay problem persisted?
Like you said, the city council in 2022 saw this issue, and they put a new process on the books that laid out a clear procedure for investigating Office of Police Accountability complaints against police chiefs in Seattle. So that city legislation provided a clear process for intake, evaluation, classification, and included a complaint notification procedure that looped in the city's top brass. So we couldn't have complaints just sitting there without anyone knowing that they were. But what it didn't include was a timeline. So complaints against the police chief, any police chief in Seattle, can remain uninvestigated for months or even years. This ordinance also prohibits anyone but the 2 civilian investigation supervisors from doing the intake for these complaints, which ultimately could be part of the problem that we're seeing.
I mean, does this letter claim that these delays in investigating complaints against the chief are intentional on the part of oversight agency heads? Or are they just an unfortunate feature of the accountability system? I mean, there's only a couple people who can do intake, and the accountability system is overloaded.
So the letter attributes the delays to mismanagement, but also what it describes as a desire by watchdog leaders to make their agencies appear more effective than they are when handling complaints against police chiefs. So the letter does speculate that the watchdog leaders aren't raising complaint process issues to those who can change it, such as the city council, because they don't want to make waves.
So this whistleblower's letter specifically names Gino Betts and Lisa Judge. Again, they're the heads of the Office of Police Accountability and the Office of the Inspector General for Public Safety. What's been the response from Betts and Judge or their offices, the city council, Mayor Harrell? Any response from these leaders?
Yeah, so a spokesperson for the mayor's office said that they take misconduct complaints seriously and that the complaints process will be examined as part of an independent investigation. The results of this could inform changes to city ordinance. Gino Betts declined to comment beyond saying that he would fully cooperate in any investigation. Lisa Judge didn't provide any comment. Earlier this month, she was reappointed to another 6-year term by city council.
So let's talk about what this means going forward, because if the Office of Police Accountability is in charge of investigating complaints against SBD, then, who investigates complaints against the OPA? Who watches the watchmen?
In the case of the complaint against Gino Betts, head of the Office of Police Accountability, the Office of Inspector General for Public Safety is supposed to oversee his office. That's the whole reason they exist. But in this case, there are complaints filed against both agencies. All department heads in Seattle answer to the mayor, who has the power to open an outside investigation into this.
And what about Chief Diaz, former Chief Diaz? Is he still being investigated by the OPA over these other complaints?
Yes, the mayor's office has confirmed that all ongoing investigations will remain open, even though Diaz is no longer police chief. And it seems like Diaz, the person who faces these allegations, wants these complaints investigated in a timely manner, too. During an interview with Jason Rantz, Diaz himself expressed frustration with how long the complaints against him are taking to be resolved. Diaz told Rantz, quote, "I've sat 11 months on an investigation and they haven't interviewed anybody."
Okay, and on the subject of that radio interview, that is the interview where Chief Diaz, the former chief, came out and said he's a gay Latino man. He came out of the closet, and he said in that interview that he didn't have an affair with his top-level advisor. He also denied the claims of sexual harassment and discrimination against him. And you were the person who reported on the ways that the rumors about Diaz's alleged relationship with this woman that he had hired as an advisor with a big salary, $160,000 plus a year, had really roiled the Seattle Police Department. The then police chief had even consulted with Homeland Security and the FBI to try to ferret out the rumors in the department. So now, does the fact that Diaz has come out put this investigation into the chief's choice in hiring and into the people in the department who are asking questions? Does that put this all to rest?
No, because there are still these OPA complaints that were open last July by multiple people. They were anonymous, of course, that are still open. To my knowledge, they are still being investigated.
Ashley Hiruko is an investigative reporter for KUOW, and we'll have a link to Ashley's latest story on the Office of Police Accountability in our show notes later today. You can find it on KUOW.org. Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.